Welcome to HP Tech Talks, a virtual event portal which offers 24/7 on-demand access to video and multimedia programs showcasing industry experts who discuss how to efficiently solve today's IT challenges and help your business become more competitive.
Hello and welcome to another edition of HP Tech Talks. In this program, we'll explore some HP technology advances that help SAP installations scale better with improved reliability. We'll also learn how HP has worked with SAP and other partners to deliver solutions that can improve the performance of SAP's Business Warehouse and NetWeaver PI. HP and SAP have been partners for almost 20 years. During this time, their relationship has evolved into a strategic alliance that encompasses technology, services, and support. As a result, today nearly half of all SAP installations worldwide run on HP platforms. That's more than 67,000 installations across 25,000 customers supporting 1.7 million users in over 50 countries. This long history of successful cooperation, coupled with a large and thriving user community, provides the trust, vendor, and user knowledge that help HP continue its role as the leading SAP solution partner. With us today is Alexander Marx, an SAP technical expert within the SAP Alliance team in HP's Enterprise Business Group. Alex is a member of the SAP Competency Center in Waldorf, Germany, which is home to SAP headquarters, but he's currently based in the US. So welcome, Alex, and let's dive right in. Reliability and scalability seem to be top of mind for a lot of IT managers today. So what's HP doing specifically to help SAP customers manage these issues?
That's a good question, Lou. Before we answer this question, let's look at the evolution of SAP in general. So SAP started with R3 about 20 years ago, and it evolved to many smaller applications. Now today we call it NetWeaver. Part of this application portfolio is, for instance, BI, Enterprise Portal, Enterprise Core Component, the old legacy R3, and they contain a lot of business functionality. And SAP is heading towards an enterprise service-oriented architecture, which foresees that business processes are going to use existing functionality out of these modules. So we have to think about what current functionality we can reuse and be part of these systems, and what new business processes can be leveraged to implement those business functionality. So let's go a little bit more into detail on what IT or the data center can provide. As I said, R3 started with a very monolithic architecture. So it was a big, huge system that was used by a lot of customers with different needs. So during the evolution of SAP, we went towards a siloed approach where with NetWeaver we have smaller systems that reside on maybe different servers, different storage, and where SAP wants to go is towards an enterprise service-oriented architecture. And that foresees using existing business functionality, but at the same time also leveraging or using existing technology.
So getting rid of the silos, opening the silos up basically to make the resources shareable across the entire infrastructure?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's not only about servers or storage or network or processes, but it's about everything. So the future platform for SAP needs to be very flexible, very dynamic, and very automated in order to be successful. And with service-oriented architecture from SAP and HP Converged Infrastructure, HP is on a very good way to fulfill this goal.
So when you talk about converged infrastructure, you're talking about more than just the server blades in a rack, right? I mean, most of us, from an IT perspective, you think of infrastructure as the computers. And what we're talking about here is a much larger vision of infrastructure. And what's HP's plan, and how does HP and SAP work together to move in that direction?
Right. So it's about the philosophy around the converged infrastructure, not taking virtualization, automation, consolidation as a separate task, but combining them in one philosophy, what we call HP Converged Infrastructure. And because SAP is going to be very business-driven, is already very much business-driven, but in the future even more, this converged infrastructure from HP really plays into this direction. And it's about, as I said, it's not only about virtualization or consolidation in general, it's about taking everything that includes storage, servers, power and cooling, which is very important, networks, and management software, to get rid of this IT sprawl, what we have today.
Well, doesn't that provide a, let's call it a challenge for provisioning? I mean, when you have to imagine how I put all these, how I specify these pieces and put them together, right? Isn't it hard? I mean, I have to have a much larger scope in my planning process, and I have to know more about more components to put them all together.
Absolutely. And this is what I'm going to talk about next. It's about sharing services. It's not about sharing this piece of software or this piece of hardware. It's sharing services and processes. So in order to get where we think, HP think, you as a business should go, is going from those siloed, very separate islands to a more unified, virtualized, consolidated, automated IT infrastructure. And converged infrastructure from HP plays and contains all of these philosophies, including power and cooling, which is very important for today's businesses. It's a big cost, and it's bad for the environment. HP, by the way, was voted the greenest big IT company by Newsweek. And by doing what we actually tell customers internally with our data centers, it's a very good proof point for customers to do the same thing.
So if I'm a CIO or an IT manager, I think I'm beginning to understand the complexity that's posed by this notion of converged infrastructure. What's HP got that I can grab my arms around to help me manage this problem?
Right. So HP recently announced a product called HP Blade System Matrix. And it's actually targeted exactly at those features you were just mentioning, a converged infrastructure. So it instantly adjusts business needs by using features that I'm going to explain in a bit in terms of virtualization, automation, to actually be very flexible in orchestrating and developing new business processes. But not only new customers can leverage this, but also existing customers can leverage their already existing hardware to do this. So HP Blade System Matrix is a software that can transform your data center.
But it can be delivered as a complete solution from HP.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's pre-integrated with our Factory Express model, but it also can be used by customers who already have existing hardware. And when we look under the covers of HP Blade System Matrix, you find various pieces, both software and hardware, as a pre-packaged solution. So we have HP Insight software in there. We have Virtual Connect as the center of the networking infrastructure. No wiring, very easy to deploy, very easy to manage. And also what we have in there is HP Blade Systems, both ProLiant and Integrity, and for storage we use HP Enterprise Virtual Array Storage. And by the way, our Blade System products were recently voted as number one by a very popular analyst firm. And with those features we offer in our Blade System solutions, that HP Blade System product actually makes it very attractive to customers.
So how do I tell HP what my SAP world looks like when I want to configure one of these Blade System Matrix products?
Right. So what we did, and I'm from the SAP world, what we did, we developed reference architectures that enables a SAP business to provision infrastructure in minutes. It also optimizes it with management tools, and it also protects, because mission-critical applications like SAP need the high level of availability at the same time. So we developed reference architectures for SAP, and specifically for SAP, we developed so-called profiles with best practices from our side. They can be downloaded from the link that is shown on this slide on the bottom right. And with the automation of workflows and with the automated provisioning, a business can actually say, well, I got a new business process and the infrastructure can be ready within minutes. So one of these templates includes a template for an SAP application server that can be deployed on, a certain set of blades with a certain set of resources like cores and memory. And then the operating system gets installed and the SAP application server gets installed automatically. This can be done with HP Blade System Matrix.
And I can do that once I get my initial configuration. I can also evolve it over time using the same tools?
Absolutely. And for a little bit more detail, you can see on this slide, there's a little screenshot on the right side where the workflow can be set up initially for the first time, saved as a template, and then can be brought up later for other similar services. So that's a workflow. Now, when we look at the automation of those workflows, they can include, let's say, the installation of an operating system and the installation of SAP through their SAP installer. And with a very sophisticated way of dragging and dropping little tasks into the work pane, you have a possibility to really configure complex scenarios. So it's not only now limited to an SAP application server, but at a later point, we're also going to come out for the deployment of a whole SAP system, like a quality assurance or development system. And all of this, as soon as you're finished defining a service and what you want to install, you can save this template in a pool of templates, and later can, out of a template pool, you can choose those templates and deploy them as you need them, as the business need them. And quite honestly, just to finish this off, this is a great way, and this is what we have been talking about for years, this is a great way to connect IT with the business.
So Blade Server Matrix lets me provision a complex SAP installation without knowing the low-level details about the individual hardware components. Now, I assume that as HP evolves those hardware components, those definitions get baked in so that my reference architecture doesn't have to change as things evolve. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so we've got the system provisioned and we have it installed. Now, how do we make sure that it's behaving correctly?
Also a good question. So you're talking about the operation side of things. So all of this is part of a global software product called HP Insight Dynamics. And the capability of HP Insight Dynamics being part of HP Insight software is that it's able to manage a landscape, no matter if it's blades, whether it's individual servers, whether it's x86 or Integrity. With the monitoring, you can manage a whole landscape. It doesn't matter even if it's virtualized or not, using virtual machine technologies from VMware or Microsoft. So from an operational perspective, you get